Who are you? Single dad janitor answered a call in Dutch. Millionaire froze. If you believe that our past doesn't define our future, that dignity exists in every honest job, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places, then you need to hear this story. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens when this janitor answers a phone call in perfect Dutch will remind you that we never truly know the full story of the people around us. Asterisk asterisk. The question came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in the executive offices of Heartfelt Financial, one of Manhattan's most prestigious investment firms. Thomas Heartfelt, the 62-year-old billionaire founder, had been working late reviewing quarterly reports when his private cell phone rang with a number from Amsterdam. He answered in Dutch, his native language, expecting his business partner abroad. But the voice that responded wasn't his partner. It was Miguel Santos, the night janitor who had just entered the office to empty the trash. And Miguel had answered in flawless, accent-perfect Dutch. Meneer Heartfelt, pardon voor de onderbreking, maar ik denk dat uw telefoon per ongeluk het achtergelaten op uw bureau in. Thomas stood frozen, his face pale with shock. The janitor, the quiet man in the gray uniform who emptied his trash every night and whom Thomas had barely acknowledged in the 3 years Miguel had worked there, was speaking Dutch. Not broken, heavily accented Dutch. Perfect, native speaker Dutch with the specific regional accent of Amsterdam Zuid. Who are you? Thomas whispered, switching to English, his voice shaking. Who are you really? Miguel's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, fear, resignation, and finally, something like relief. He set down his cleaning cart and said quietly in English, I'm Miguel Santos, sir. Your night janitor. But you're right to ask. Because that's not the whole story. What Thomas Heartfelt discovered in the next hour would shatter every assumption he'd made about the humble janitor who cleaned his office. And what Miguel revealed would not only change both their lives, but would force Thomas to confront his own prejudices, his own lost humanity, and the son he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. But to understand how a janitor came to speak perfect Dutch, how a billionaire came to be so alone that he worked until midnight, and how one overheard phone call could unravel decades of secrets and choices, we need to go back. We need to understand who these men really were. Miguel Santos was born Miguel van der Berg in Amsterdam, Netherlands, 38 years ago. His father was Dutch, a successful architect. His mother was Colombian, a talented painter who had moved to Amsterdam for art school and stayed when she fell in love. Miguel grew up bilingual, speaking Dutch at school and in public, Spanish at home with his mother and her family. He was privileged: private schools, university education, a beautiful canal house to grow up in. Miguel studied international business at the University of Amsterdam, graduating top of his class. He was recruited by a major Dutch investment firm right out of university. By age 28, he was already being groomed for partnership. He had a beautiful wife, Carolina, whom he'd met in university. They had a baby daughter, Sophia. Life was perfect. Everything was according to plan. Then the financial crisis hit hard. The investment firm Miguel worked for had made spectacularly bad decisions. They collapsed virtually overnight. But worse than the firm's collapse was what investigators discovered: systematic fraud, insider trading, and money laundering. Miguel's boss, the man who had mentored him, was arrested. And Miguel, as a senior analyst who had signed off on some of the questionable deals, was implicated. Miguel maintained his innocence. He truly hadn't known about the illegal activities. His boss had been very careful to keep them hidden from most employees. But the prosecutors didn't believe him. Or perhaps they just needed someone to prosecute. The trial was brutal and very public. The media painted Miguel as a greedy banker who had helped steal from ordinary people. In the end, the criminal case against Miguel fell apart due to lack of evidence. But his life was already destroyed. He was acquitted but lost his professional license. No firm in the Netherlands would hire him. His wife, Carolina, couldn't handle the stress and public shame. She filed for divorce when Sophia was just 3 years old. The custody battle gave them joint custody, but Carolina made it clear she didn't want Miguel in her life more than necessary. Miguel, broken and blacklisted, made a desperate decision. He would move to America for a fresh start. He found work with an international charity willing to overlook his tainted past. Carolina agreed to the move on one condition: Sophia would spend the school year with her in Amsterdam and summers with Miguel in New York. For the past 8 years, Miguel had been living in New York, working whatever jobs he could find that didn't require financial background checks. Restaurants, construction, delivery services. 3 years ago, he'd gotten his current job as night janitor at Heartfelt Financial. The pay was better, and the night shift meant he could video call Sophia before her bedtime in Amsterdam each evening. Miguel lived in a tiny studio apartment in Queens. He sent most of his money to Amsterdam for Sophia's expenses and to save for her university education. He lived frugally, worked hard, and focused on being the best father he could be to a daughter he only saw in person for 2 months each year. The one luxury Miguel allowed himself was maintaining his Dutch language skills. He read Dutch newspapers online, watched Dutch programs, and spoke Dutch during his nightly video calls with Sophia. It was his connection to his daughter, to his homeland, to the man he used to be. Miguel had learned to find dignity in honest work, even if that work was emptying trash cans and mopping floors. He'd learned that his worth as a human being wasn't determined by his job title or bank account. He'd learned that being a good father to Sophia was more important than the career he'd lost. What Miguel hadn't learned was how to stop feeling invisible. In 3 years at Heartfelt Financial, virtually no one had ever really looked at him. He was the janitor, part of the invisible workforce. The executives would work late, talking on their phones about their important business, and Miguel would clean their offices as if he didn't exist. Thomas Heartfelt, meanwhile, had a very different story, but one that had also led to isolation and regret. Thomas had been born in Amsterdam to a working-class family. His father was a dock worker, his mother a seamstress. Thomas was brilliant and ambitious, determined to escape poverty. He won a scholarship to university in the United States, studied finance, and never looked back. He built Heartfelt Financial from nothing, becoming one of the most successful investors in New York. Thomas married an American woman, Elizabeth, and they had one son, James. Thomas provided his family with every material comfort, but he was never home. Building his empire consumed him. He missed James's childhood, the school plays, the baseball games, the bedtime stories. He told himself he was doing it for his family, but really, he was doing it for himself. Elizabeth died of illness when James was 22. On her deathbed, she told Thomas, "You built an empire but lost your family. Don't let James slip away too." But Thomas, devastated by grief, buried himself even deeper in work. And James, hurt by years of his father's absence, did slip away. The final break came 5 years ago. James had become a social worker, to Thomas's disappointment. James had fallen in love with Maria, a teacher from a working-class background. When James announced his engagement, Thomas said things he immediately regretted about Maria not being good enough, about James wasting his potential. James walked out that day and hadn't spoken to his father since. Thomas had missed his son's wedding, the birth of his grandson, now 4 years old, and 5 years of his son's life because he was too proud to apologize. Now, at 62, Thomas was one of the wealthiest men in New York, but also one of the loneliest. He worked late every night because his empty apartment held too many memories. He was respected, feared, and successful, but he was profoundly alone. That Tuesday night, Thomas had been on the phone with his Dutch business partner. He'd ended the call and gotten absorbed in documents. When his phone rang again an hour later with an Amsterdam number, he answered in Dutch without thinking. Instead, he heard Miguel's voice, the janitor's voice, speaking perfect, native speaker Dutch. The shock was profound. For 3 years, Thomas had barely noticed this man. Miguel was just the janitor. And now here he was, speaking Thomas's native language with the exact accent of Amsterdam Zuid. "Who are you?" Thomas asked again. "Who are you that you speak Dutch like this? Who are you really?" Miguel stood there with his cleaning cart and made a decision. He was tired of being invisible, tired of hiding. "My name is Miguel Vanderberg," he said in English. "I was born in Amsterdam. I have a degree in international business from the University of Amsterdam. I used to work for a major Dutch investment firm. And 8 years ago, my life fell apart because of a scandal I didn't create but couldn't escape. So now I'm here, a janitor in your building, trying to provide for my daughter who lives in Amsterdam and whom I only see for 2 months each year." Thomas stared at him. "Vanderberg, were you involved with the Decker financial scandal?" Miguel's face showed resignation. "Yes, I was acquitted of all charges, but the damage was done. I couldn't find work in finance anywhere in Europe. So I came here." Thomas sat down heavily. He remembered the scandal. You were acquitted, but you lost everything anyway. Yes. And you're working as a janitor because no one will give you a chance to do anything else. I'm working as a janitor because it's honest work that pays enough for me to send money to Amsterdam for my daughter and save for her education. I'm not ashamed of the work I do, Mr. Hartfield. I'm only ashamed of the crime I didn't commit, but that destroyed my life anyway. Thomas really looked at Miguel for the first time. Late 30s, well-spoken, clearly educated, standing with quiet dignity despite the janitor's uniform. Tell me about your daughter, Thomas said. Miguel's face softened immediately. Sophia. She's 11 now. Lives with her mother in Amsterdam. I see her every summer for 2 months. She's brilliant, funny, loves science. Wants to be a doctor. She's why I do this work. You talk to her in Dutch. Every night. It's our time together. I read to her, help with homework, tell her about my day, though I make it sound more interesting than it is. I don't want her to worry. Does she know what you do? Miguel hesitated. She knows I work in building maintenance. She doesn't need to carry the weight of knowing her father empties trash cans when he used to be a financial analyst. Thomas felt something crack in his chest. Here was a man who had lost everything but did humble work with dignity because he loved his daughter. Thomas had everything but had lost his son through pride and workaholism. I have a son, Thomas heard himself say. James, 33 years old. I haven't spoken to him in 5 years. Missed his wedding. Never met my grandson. Drove him away because I was too busy building this empire to be a father. Too proud to apologize. Miguel looked at the billionaire and saw loneliness. It's never too late to apologize. I don't know if he'd even take my call. But you won't know unless you try. Mr. Hartfield, I would give anything to have my daughter here with me all the time instead of just 2 months a year. You have a son in the same city, and you're choosing not to see him. That's a different kind of tragedy. Thomas felt tears welling up. I don't know how to be different than I am. Miguel set down his cleaning supplies. Mr. Hartfield, for 8 years I've had to learn to be someone different. I was a successful analyst. Now I'm a janitor. I had to learn that my worth isn't tied to my job title. That dignity comes from how you treat people and how you live your life, not from how much money you make. You found dignity in this. Thomas gestured at the cleaning cart. I found dignity in knowing I'm doing honest work to support my daughter, that I'm not stealing or cheating, that when Sophia asks what I do, I can tell her I help keep a building clean and safe, and that's true and honorable. Thomas was quiet for a long time. Then, do you want to be a janitor forever? Miguel paused. No, I want to use my education. I want work that challenges my mind. But I know my past makes me unemployable in finance. So I've learned to be grateful and make the best of it. Thomas made a decision. What if I hired you as a junior analyst at Heartfield Financial? Miguel's face showed hope and skepticism. Why would you do that? You barely knew I existed until 20 minutes ago. Because in 20 minutes, you've shown me more about character and dignity than most of my executives have shown in years. Because you were wrongly accused and lost everything. Because you speak Dutch and understand European markets. But mostly, because you reminded me that success without humanity is worthless. That pride is a prison. That being a father matters more than being a billionaire. Miguel had tears in his eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Come work for me as an analyst. I'll pay you what the position deserves. You'll start at junior level because you've been out of the field for 8 years, but if you're as good as I suspect, you'll advance quickly. This isn't charity. This isn't charity. This is recognizing talent that's been wasted. This is good business. This is me trying to do something right instead of just what's profitable. What about my past? The scandal. You were acquitted. Anyone asks, I'll tell them I hired you because you're brilliant and I trust you. End of discussion. Miguel faced a choice he never imagined he'd have. A chance to reclaim his career. To use his mind again. To provide better for Sophia. On one condition, Miguel said. What's that? You call your son tomorrow. You apologize. You rebuild that relationship. Because Mr. Hartfield, professional success means nothing without family to share it with. I learned that the hard way. Thomas smiled for the first time in years. Deal. I'll call James tomorrow if you accept the analyst position. Then I accept. Thank you, Mr. Hartfield. You have no idea what this means. Call me Thomas. And I think I do know. It means hope. For both of us. They shook hands. The billionaire and the janitor. Two men from Amsterdam who had taken very different paths but found themselves in the same place, both needing redemption. The next morning, Thomas called his son. James almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "James, it's your father. Before you hang up, please, just listen. I was wrong. About everything. About Maria, about your choices, about what matters. I let pride cost me my son. I missed your wedding. I've never met my grandson. I'm so sorry. I know one apology can't fix 5 years, but I'm asking for a chance to be your father again. To be a grandfather. To be in your life, if you'll let me." Long silence. Then James said, voice thick with emotion, "Do you mean that? Really?" "Yes. I met someone last night who taught me that dignity and character matter more than success. Who reminded me that being a father is more important than being a billionaire. And it made me realize what a fool I've been." Who was this person? The janitor in my building. A man I've barely noticed for 3 years, who turns out to be more insightful than most of my executives. He has a daughter he only sees 2 months a year, and he cherishes that time. And I have a son I could see any time, and I've let pride keep us apart. James was crying. "I've missed you, Dad. But you hurt me. You hurt Maria. I know. And I will spend the rest of my life making it up if you give me the chance. Can I take you and Maria and my grandson to dinner?" "Yes," James whispered. "Yes." 3 weeks later, Thomas held his 4-year-old grandson Noah for the first time and wept. Maria was gracious and kind, though cautious. James was healing, slowly rebuilding trust. Thomas attended Noah's preschool graduation. He had family dinner every Sunday. He was learning to be a father and grandfather. Miguel thrived in his new position. Thomas had been right. Miguel was brilliant. His 8 years away meant he approached problems with fresh eyes. His European perspective and language skills made him invaluable. His humility from his janitor years meant he never looked down on anyone. The other analysts were initially skeptical, but Miguel won them over with competence, kindness, and willingness to help anyone. He remembered being dismissed and invisible, so he made a point of seeing everyone: janitors, security guards, assistants. He learned their names, asked about their families, treated them with respect. Within 6 months, Miguel saved enough for a down payment on a nice apartment. He video called Sophia from his new place, showing her the room he'd set up for her summer visits. "Papa, it's beautiful," Sophia said in Dutch. "And Mama says you have a new job?" "Yes, Liefje. I work as a financial analyst now, like I used to in Amsterdam." "I'm so proud of you, Papa." "I did it for you, Sophia. Everything is for you." A year after the phone call that changed everything, Thomas invited Miguel to his office. "Miguel, I want to make you a partner." Miguel was stunned. "Thomas, I've only been here a year. A year in which you've proven yourself over and over. You've brought in major European clients because of your language skills and cultural knowledge. You've shown more integrity than analysts who've been here a decade. You've earned this. There's something else. What if we opened a branch office in Amsterdam? I need someone I trust to run it. Someone who speaks the language, understands the culture, knows the market." Miguel's heart stopped. "Amsterdam. A chance to be near your daughter. You'd run our European operations from Amsterdam. You'd still work for Heartfelt Financial, but you'd be based there. You could see Sophia regularly instead of just summers." Miguel had to sit down. "Thomas, this is too much. It's what you deserve. You gave me my son back, Miguel. That night when you told me to call James, that changed my life. I have a family again. I know my grandson. You gave me that gift. Let me give you this." Miguel was crying. "I would get to see Sophia. All the time. I could be a real father." "Yes. And Miguel, I've been in touch with people in the Dutch financial community. I told them your story, what really happened, how you were unfairly blamed, how you've rebuilt with dignity. Several major firms want to work with you. Your reputation can be repaired. After 8 years? When people hear the real story from someone they respect, yes, I vouch for you. My word carries weight. You'll never completely escape the shadow, but you can step into the light again." Miguel looked at this man who had become a mentor and friend. "Why? Why do all this?" Thomas smiled. "Because a year ago, I was the loneliest, most miserable success story in New York. Then I heard a janitor answer my phone in Dutch, and everything changed. You taught me that dignity isn't about titles. That character matters more than career. That family is everything. You saved me, Miguel. This is just me returning the favor." Miguel accepted. 3 months later, he was in Amsterdam, running Heartfelt Financial's European operations from a beautiful office overlooking the canals. He had an apartment near Sophia's school. He had breakfast with his daughter every morning. He attended her school events. He was present in her life. Carolina was initially wary but saw that Miguel had changed, or perhaps had finally become who he was meant to be. They developed a friendly co-parenting relationship. Miguel even started dating Anna, a kind Dutch woman who worked at a museum and adored Sophia. Back in New York, Thomas transformed too. He left work at reasonable hours for family dinner. He attended Noah's soccer games. He took James and Maria on vacation. He was learning to be present, to prioritize relationships over deals. He also instituted changes at Heartfelt Financial. He started a program to hire people who had been unfairly blacklisted. He made sure support staff were paid well and treated with respect. He would chat with the cleaning crew, learn their names. One night, a new janitor asked Thomas, "Why do you treat us so nicely? Most executives don't even see us." Thomas smiled. "Because 3 years ago, I didn't see someone I should have seen. And when I finally did, he changed my life. I don't want to make that mistake again." 2 years after the phone call, Miguel stood in Thomas's Amsterdam office celebrating the firm's most successful European quarter ever. "This is your triumph," Thomas said, raising champagne. "We built this," Miguel corrected. "You took a chance when no one else would. And you gave me my life back. Fair trade." They clinked glasses, two men from Amsterdam who had both been lost and both been found. "Thomas, can I ask you something?" Miguel said. "Always. That night when I answered your phone in Dutch, did you ever wonder why I risked it? What made you decide to stop hiding?" Miguel smiled. "Honestly, I was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending my past didn't exist. When your phone rang and I heard Dutch, it felt like hearing my own voice after years of silence. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I needed someone to see me. Really see me. Even if it meant losing my job. Instead, you found your life. We both did. You know what's strange? If the scandal hadn't happened, I would probably be miserable. I would be chasing money and status instead of being present for Sophia. The tragedy that destroyed my old life forced me to build a better one. Do you really believe that?" "Yes. I lost everything. Career, marriage, reputation. But I gained perspective. Humility. Understanding that my worth isn't tied to my job title. And now I have both. A career I love and wisdom to not let it consume me. I have breakfast with Sophia every morning, Thomas. Every single morning." Thomas nodded. "I think about that. How my success nearly destroyed me. It took a janitor speaking Dutch to wake me up. We save each other," Miguel said simply. "That's what people do when they're brave enough to see each other." 3 years after that fateful call, Sophia turned 14. She was thriving, still planning to become a doctor. She had a good relationship with both parents. She adored Anna, now Miguel's fiancée, and she had a new friend, Noah Heartfelt. Thomas had started bringing Noah to Amsterdam on business trips. The children bonded. Noah called Miguel Uncle Miguel, and Sophia called Thomas Opa Thomas. The families had become intertwined in beautiful ways. At Sophia's birthday party, Thomas gave a toast. "Sophia, I want to tell you about your father. 3 years ago, I was one of the most successful and most miserable men in New York. I worked late in an office cleaned by a man I never truly saw, a man I dismissed as just the janitor. But that man, your father, was never just anything. He was brilliant and kind and strong. And one night, he answered my phone in Dutch, and everything changed." Sophia beamed at her father. Thomas continued, "Your father taught me that our worth isn't measured by job titles or bank accounts. That dignity comes from how we treat people. That being a good parent matters more than being successful. He saved my relationship with my son. Sophia, you have the most extraordinary father. I hope you know that." "I do know," Sophia said, hugging Miguel. "Papa tells me everything he does is for me. Now I understand what he means." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that everyone has a story, that dignity exists in all honest work, and that we should never judge people by their job titles, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for second chances, that our past doesn't define our future, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places. ****. The message of Miguel and Thomas's story is powerful. we never truly know the full story of the people around us. Thomas saw a janitor and assumed that's all Miguel was. He missed 3 years of opportunities to know an extraordinary person because he made assumptions based on a uniform. How many of us do the same thing every day? How many brilliant, talented, remarkable people do we dismiss because of surface judgments? Asterisk, asterisk. Miguel could have stayed invisible, but he chose to be seen. He chose to answer that phone in Dutch, knowing it might cost him his job, but unable to hide anymore. That courage changed 2 lives. Asterisk, asterisk. The story reminds us that dignity exists in all honest work. Miguel was never just a janitor. He was a father, a survivor, a man of character working honestly to support his daughter. Every person doing work that society undervalues, they all have stories, dreams, talents, worth. They all deserve to be seen. Asterisk, asterisk. It reminds us that our past doesn't define our future. Miguel was caught in someone else's crime and lost everything. He could have become bitter. Instead, he rebuilt with dignity. And when redemption came, he was ready. Asterisk, asterisk. It reminds us that second chances matter. Thomas could have ignored what he learned about Miguel. Instead, he took a risk on someone the world had written off. And that risk paid off beyond any business deal. Asterisk, asterisk. Most importantly, the story reminds us that we need each other. Thomas saved Miguel by giving him opportunity. Miguel saved Thomas by showing him what really mattered. They were both lost, both invisible to themselves and others. When they finally saw each other, everything changed. Asterisk, asterisk. So here's the challenge. Who are you not seeing? Who have you dismissed based on their job title, their appearance, their circumstances? The cashier, the delivery driver, the custodian. Who are they really? What stories are they carrying? What potential are you overlooking? Asterisk, asterisk. And are you brave enough to be seen? Are you hiding your true self? Miguel teaches us that being seen is scary but necessary. That honesty takes courage. That revealing yourself is risky but worth it. Asterisk, asterisk. Learn the names of the people who clean your office. See the humans behind the job titles. Give second chances to people who deserve them. Maintain your dignity regardless of circumstances. Be brave enough to be seen and compassionate enough to see others. Asterisk, asterisk. Because you never know when a phone call in Dutch or any other moment of unexpected honesty might change everything. Thank you for being here. Now go out there and see people. Really see them. You never know who might save your life if you're brave enough to see theirs. Asterisk, asterisk.